I was in law school, I worked part-time as an assistant at a small but reputable law firm. The job wasn't hard. Carry documents, read through case files, sit in on hearings, and learn from the experienced attorneys. I took the internship seriously. I wanted to see how all the theory we were cramming in class actually played out in real life. I found family court cases the most gripping. Real emotion, real stakes, better drama than any stage play. There's one case I'll never forget. On paper, it looked like a routine divorce. The client was a man in his early 40s, tall, calm, well-dressed, polite, but his eyes, they looked worn, like someone who had aged 10 years in a month. He and his wife had 3 children. The oldest was 12, the middle one 7, and the youngest 3. He was a business owner, ran a mid-sized construction company, spoke clearly with no bitterness, said divorce was necessary, it's the right thing to do. At first, it seemed like his wife just wanted to leave quietly, no drama. But it turned out to be more complicated. The man had discovered his wife was cheating, the usual way, found messages by accident. I wasn't snooping, he said, just stumbled upon something and couldn't unsee it. Then I started connecting dots, and everything fell into place. The affair was confirmed. Worse yet, there was a strong chance the youngest child wasn't his. He filed for divorce, wanted to keep it civil, said he was willing to pay child support, split the assets, no court fights, as long as the kids were spared the pain. They didn't ask for any of this, he said quietly. There was no anger in his voice, just a kind of sadness, a sense of acceptance. At first, his wife seemed to agree. But something shifted, maybe pride, maybe fear he'd go through with a paternity test and drag it into a financial battle. At the next hearing, out of nowhere, her lawyer filed a motion requesting DNA testing. Her request, not his. She stood up in court and said loud and clear, "If you're so sure you've been lied to, then test them all. Go ahead. Maybe you'll be ashamed when you see the truth." She said it with defiance, almost a performance. But beneath that anger, you could hear something else. Anxiety. The attorney I worked for glanced at me and shook his head. I didn't understand why at the time. Later I would. The process dragged on. The test was scheduled. In the meantime, it was all just legal procedure. Filings, formal responses, positioning. The husband remained calm, too calm. The wife grew tense, defensive, more aggressive in her tone, as if trying to provoke a reaction, find some weakness. And then, the final hearing. The results were in. The judge opened the folder, flipped through the papers, and paused. For a few seconds, she just sat there, staring. I saw something I'd never seen before, a judge completely lose her composure. No emotion in her voice, just stunned stillness. She read out paternity, not established, for any of the 3 children. The room went silent. The man sat perfectly still, hands resting on his knees, head slightly bowed. He didn't move, didn't say a word. And his wife, she said nothing for a moment. Then in a voice so soft it barely reached the mic, like she was talking to a friend in her kitchen, she said, "Well, I thought at least 2 were his. How am I supposed to find their dads now?" The air just froze. No outrage, no breakdown, no shouting, just silence. Somewhere behind us, a clerk dropped a pen. It rolled across the tile floor, the sound cutting through the stillness like a pin in a cathedral. The judge wrapped up the formalities. The session was closed. We stepped out of the courtroom. The man turned to thank the attorney, shook my hand too, then walked away. No hesitation, no looking back. There was no anger on his face, just emptiness, like he had just closed the book on one life and was quietly stepping into another, stripped of illusions. That day, I understood something about the truth. It doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it arrives cold, quiet, and merciless. And it shows up right when you least expect it. The house smells of cornbread, fried potatoes, and silence. Not the kind that crushes your ears, but the kind where 2 men, father and grown son, live easily side by side. We talk little, the way men often do, but we understand each other without fuss. No doors slam here anymore. No dishes fly against the walls. No woman's laugh drifts down the hallway. No little feet pound up the stairs. Only an old FM radio in the kitchen murmurs classic country tunes and the morning news from KQRS. That's how an ordinary weekday begins. While the coffee maker sputters, I, an aging man to whom life has handed both love and pain, let myself remember, sometimes you have to just to stay sane. I divorced back in 2014. A deployment to Afghanistan, routine for career guard soldiers like me. Camo, checkpoints, guys who ask no unnecessary questions. I flew home early, Saturday instead of Monday, because paperwork cleared faster than expected. Dawn, quiet stairwell. The familiar scent of the Minneapolis apartment building. My key turned, I stepped inside. Wrong size sneakers at the door, a stranger's jeans over the armchair, and then oil on canvas. My wife tangled in someone else's arms. Bed sheets in knots, her wide-eyed fear, his cocky half-grin. I couldn't forgive. It wasn't pride. Something inside simply snapped like a blade driven in and left to rust. I sold my pickup, hired an attorney. The custody fight was brutal, but I won. My son, 10, stood beside me without a word. My daughter, 6, clung to my hand as if it were a life raft. We managed, no whining, no self-pity. I worked swing shifts at the rail yard. They went to school. The house in St. Paul wasn't fancy, but it was ours. 5 bedrooms, warm in winter. Floors I'd laid myself, yard toys bought bit by bit. We held on. Then came 2019, a buddy's birthday cookout out in Stillwater. Brisket, light beer, old friends. She was there. Leah, large brown eyes, shy smile. Flinched at sharp laughs, winced when someone slammed a cooler lid. Later a friend whispered, her husband's a bully. Tracks everything she does, explodes when he drinks, smacks her and the kids. 2 girls, 4 and 11. We texted after that. Nothing heavy, stickers, check-ins, goodnight notes. Half a year passed. Then, could we talk? We sat in my truck outside her duplex. She spoke fast, half whispering, scared that neighbors might hear. I, a man who'd stopped believing in second chances, felt something thaw beneath old winter ice. I asked my kids, now 17 and 12. They traded glances. Dad, if she's kind and her girls are safe with us, bring them. I drove over, alone. Expected a brute. Met a scrawny 5'5" drunk with a cigarette and a sneer. Words failed, fists followed. I'm not proud, yet I'd do the same. We packed Leah's things, buckled her daughters in, headed home. A new life started. Her girls accepted me instantly. Mine were cautious at first, then the 4 blended like cousins at a long reunion. Mornings were a blur. Elementary school, middle school, my son's community college, my graveyard shift. Leah cleaned, cooked, laughed again. Evenings, the big oak table buzzed with voices. It felt unreal, peaceful. We married. 30 days between her divorce decree and our courthouse vows. Nearly a year of calm. Then, it unraveled. Her youngest let it slip. Mom sees the other guy when you're at work. I doubted, then checked. Truth hurts fast. I sent all 4 kids to Valley Fair for the day. Rides, funnel cakes, prepaid wristbands. Then sat across from Leah at the dining table. Quiet, no shouting. Why? She sighed. Everything's fine here, maybe too fine. You don't yell, you don't hit, you barely drink, there's no music blaring. The house feels like a clinic. With him, it's crazy, alive. He swears he's changed, won't lay a hand on me again. And well, the sex is wild. The floor seemed to tilt. Anger never flared, only emptiness. I grabbed a duffel, drove 3 nights on overtime, slept in the crew cab. Came back, she was gone. House key hooked neatly on the dog's leash. Goodbye. 3 days later, she returned for a box from the closet. Stood in the doorway, hair covering her face. I saw the bruise. Purple, swollen, ugly. Felt nothing. No pity, no rage, just hollow. A year I patched myself up. Work helped. Steel tools occupy restless hands. One evening that same buddy said, "Quit rescuing folks who live in mud. Some need it like air, prov bile. Now it's just me and my son. He's 21, works IT, lifts weights. My daughter married last fall, moved to Denver. Her husband's a vascular surgeon. They're fine. Nights, my boy and I sit quietly, sometimes chess, sometimes ribs on the smoker. He laughs when I crash at 9, I grumble when he stumbles in at midnight, and the house is silent. True silence, the kind that says, it's over, keep walking. You made it, you're alive.
California's sun burned into my shoulders, and the air carried the tang of salt water, the sweet scent of sunscreen, and the distant laughter of beachgoers. A gentle tune played near the infinity pool, something light and tropical, with a pop beat underneath. This was not the kind of resort you stumble upon by accident. 5-star luxury, a seafood buffet, waiters dressed in crisp white uniforms, and pristine cleanliness. A place where you escape not only the daily grind, but yourself. I'd been lounging by the pool for days, sipping cold craft beer and worrying about nothing except not getting sunburned before I had to fly home. It was somewhere between my third and fourth pint when I noticed them by the edge of the water. She was blonde, maybe 35, possibly older. Tall, with a well-maintained figure. Clearly someone who took care of herself. Her face had soft features, very all-American, slightly weary but glowing with happiness. He was lean and tanned, with a short beard and dark sunglasses. His eyes, though obscured, seemed intense. When he looked at her, there was so much tenderness that, even as a lifelong cynic, I felt a pang somewhere inside. They laughed, splashed in the water, and talked in a mix of accented English and something else I couldn't place. She kissed his cheek. He held her by the waist. At some point, I found myself close enough to strike up a conversation, because that's what happens on vacations. Are you two together? I asked, without malice or ulterior motives, just out of curiosity. She laughed. Yes, she said. We meet here every year, 6 years in a row now. He nodded, adding with an accent, she is my love, only one, my beloved. I raised an eyebrow and smiled. California's sun, summer, romance, it all fit into a story as cliched as it was warm. Where do you live? I asked. I'm from Michigan, she said. He lives here in San Diego. He works at the marina, sometimes does boat tours. And me, I don't work? You don't work? Then who pays for all this? I gestured around at the lavish resort. It's not cheap, you know? She looked at me calmly, almost defiantly. My husband, your husband? I nearly choked on my beer. So you're married? Yes, she said without hesitation. I have a son. He's 11. My husband is a good man, hardworking, supportive. We've been together a long time. But she glanced at the man next to her. I love him. My Turk. He smiled at her but didn't follow every word. She leaned in and kissed him briefly. I was stunned. A husband, a son, and annual trips to another man across the country? Not for a day or two, but for a whole week, every year for 6 years straight? Does he know? I asked finally. My husband? She smirked. No, of course not. He thinks I'm on a girls' trip. Says I deserve it. The Turk watched her with such adoration that it felt as if the world around him disappeared whenever she was near. He couldn't catch all of our conversation, but he understood enough from her tone. He took her hand and pressed it against his chest. She kissed him on the lips. I stepped away, not out of morality, but because the air felt tight, claustrophobic. Not from judgment, but from the sheer weight of it all. Somewhere in Michigan, there's a man who has no idea his wife flies off to San Diego each year to be with someone else. He might be at home making breakfast for their son, completely oblivious that his wife is wrapped in another man's arms by a pool on the Pacific coast. And there I was, sitting by the pool, listening to someone say I love you with a thick accent, and realizing the world isn't black and white. It's painted in shades of loyalty, lust, lies, self-deception, and the aching desire to feel alive. Because in her eyes, there was no cruelty, no malice, only longing for something she didn't have at home. I went back to my chair, poured myself another beer, and stretched out under the sun. But one thought wouldn't leave my mind. If your wife, Susan, takes annual girls' trips to San Diego, buddy, you're a fool.
When I was in law school, I worked part-time as an assistant at a small but reputable law firm. The job wasn't hard. Carry documents, read through case files, sit in on hearings, and learn from the experienced attorneys. I took the internship seriously. I wanted to see how all the theory we were cramming in class actually played out in real life. I found family court cases the most gripping. Real emotion, real stakes, better drama than any stage play. There's one case I'll never forget. On paper, it looked like a routine divorce. The client was a man in his early 40s, tall, calm, well-dressed, polite, but his eyes, they looked worn, like someone who had aged 10 years in a month. He and his wife had 3 children. The oldest was 12, the middle one 7, and the youngest 3. He was a business owner, ran a mid-sized construction company, spoke clearly with no bitterness, said divorce was necessary, it's the right thing to do. At first, it seemed like his wife just wanted to leave quietly, no drama. But it turned out to be more complicated. The man had discovered his wife was cheating, the usual way, found messages by accident. I wasn't snooping, he said, just stumbled upon something and couldn't unsee it. Then I started connecting dots, and everything fell into place. The affair was confirmed. Worse yet, there was a strong chance the youngest child wasn't his. He filed for divorce, wanted to keep it civil, said he was willing to pay child support, split the assets, no court fights, as long as the kids were spared the pain. They didn't ask for any of this, he said.